Today I wanted to talk about male-female dynamics, but it does apply across other gendered relationships, I'm sure, because there is a conditioning in Western cultures that is very subtle about the superiority of men. And one of the ways that this plays out is in the home with where there is a male-female parenting that, just like happened with me when I was a teenager, I'd done some innocuous thing and my mother said to me, just wait until your father gets home. And then she kind of did the silent treatment. When my father got home, he got out the strap and strapped me. And it it demonstrates that the male role in our society is the disciplinarian, the power holder, and that women have given into that and believe that to be the truth of the matter. So in a culture where increasingly there are boys brought up by women, single parents, or same-sex lesbian couples, there is inherent in our culture a outrage at being disciplined by a woman, by being given a boundary by a woman. And that boundary may be like, I think you spoke disrespectfully to the waiter, to all the way to saying no for sex. And it seems to me there's a underlying resentment from men of women who complain or put a boundary in or say no. They do not like it. And why I'm raising this is there's a wonderful therapist in North America, Terry Real, who has done a lot of work with couples and in helping them to be able to talk better to each other. But I was listening to him talking about how to frame complaints so that the person, primarily the man, can hear. And what I realized is that he is unconsciously training women to tiptoe around men who are defensive. So even though he's obviously done a lot of personal work, highly educated, there's still this subtle thing that men can't tolerate criticism. They somehow see, one, maybe that how dare you, you're not entitled to criticize me. But secondly, it maybe activates some underlying sense of a criticism of a behaviour being a criticism of who they are as human beings. So while we tiptoe around that, these kind of situations are going to keep arising. And what we have is seemingly adult men still behaving like boys and still wanting women to treat them like boys, still wanting women to do their laundry, make their meals, clean the house, in return for once a week mowing the lawn, or you know, I'm making it fairly generalised, but to really demonstrate that there isn't equality in how men relate to women, and the impact of that on women is that they learn very early on to adapt themselves to men or to people in power. So they will tiptoe around uh, someone's feelings rather than address it directly, because they know there'll be a big barrage coming back at them. And what what women learn is that we are are used to being dismissed. We're used to having our needs dismissed, our desires dismissed. We are kind of appendages to men. And so some women have coped with that by trying to be like men, so to try and have power over others. And particularly in groups of women, that is often one of the outfalls of this, is that there's a lot of competition between women and a lot of status based on fairly superficial things like looks and social status, maybe degree of fame or talent. But still, underneath that, this tolerating of immature masculine behaviour. And particularly it's important when we're talking about working with violence, and violence against women particularly, but violence against vulnerable people. So it all stems from the same root of entitlement to not be challenged for your behaviour. And we see how much our culture tolerates it through the recent example in the Parliament with Julianne Genter, I'm not sure, how there is this very quick judgment of her as being intimidating. And if you watch the clip, she is trying to get Matt Ducey, the Minister of Mental Health, to actually see the facts in the report. That's all she's trying to do, and he is taunting her, and he's obviously enjoying it. But we are so socialized into that this is how our leaders behave, this is how women are treated when they are frustrated at trying to communicate something and they are being gaslit. And we see the results of that now, where a 13-year-old boy is stabbing a 16-year-old boy at the bus station. They are exposed to this culture, and that is the extreme end of this kind of behaviour. So primarily domestic violence work with perpetrators is carried out by men. In Northland, there's an organisation called Man Alive that only has male facilitators, allows some women to trot in and give their experience of what it was like to be victims, but women are not there to challenge the behaviour. And when I raised this with one of these facilitators, he was unable to see that maybe there was a possibility that he would not see some effects of patriarchy or male dominance. And here we have Terry Real, a very well educated man, also encouraging women to tiptoe around men. And that indicates to me how entrenched these attitudes are, and how essential it is that women are running these groups with violence, because we see what men fail to see as an issue. We know it through our lived experience, and we also then can provide a model of a woman who is able to make a boundary, and for that negotiation to go in a different way to what they've experienced. Because I think a lot of men are highly defended from their emotions, and so they use this childlike coping strategy simply to protect themselves. But it has huge consequences for their partners, their children, and generally how they behave in workplaces, the entitlement to sexually intimidate employees that are beneath them, or touch them inappropriately, talk to them inappropriately. And many men will not even be aware that that's what they're doing. So I just really, one last thing was, I listened to a song by Rachel Platten, an American singer today. It's called Bad Thoughts. And really it's a video of a woman who is extremely distressed, who has these thoughts running through her head. And what it made me realize is this is the soundtrack in most women's heads, and probably in most men's heads underneath it. But in women's heads, this belief that we are wrong, we have to adapt to the man's inability to feel hurt or to feel frightened. Now, we can carry on doing that, and if we do, we're saying that we're okay with more women being hurt and killed and living their lives in terror. Their children watching that, their children also being victims of that. And, sometimes, like, I'm just aware that there are women that are involved in the murder of their children. And I have to ask myself, sometimes their family situation may be so bad that they see that as the only safe thing to do for their children. Um, who knows? Who knows? It's just a thought. But I suppose what I'm saying is, one, um, we have to have a different approach to seeing power, the abuse of power, and particularly with white men who have unconsciously been conditioned to behave this way. And this generation, this time in the world, is a time to change that. So I look forward to a change in how we talk about violence.